everybody. Welcome to Cloud Connect. Ryan, how's it going?
Great. We got snow here today. It's very exciting.
Really?
I just want to start by saying that it snowed in Knoxville. It's thrilling times.
Well, this I think is our last, stream until the end of the year here. You know, obviously holidays are coming up, and
Yep.
This has been fun. But I think we got a fun guest today. Somebody who I've known for a long time at Microsoft, but now he's in the partner side of the business. So without further ado, we'll invite John Lulay to the stage. John, welcome.
Hey, welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
Thanks for joining us.
I always feel like I'm seeing
Good. How are you doing?
here with. I'm good. Is there a lag or?
I think we're okay.
Okay. Yeah, because both of you, I feel like you had hair at one time, and it's just slowly slid down your face, and kind of there. But yeah, I'm just glad we all have.
Gets to grow hair.
That's what's so funny is that you can do it and you shave it. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
amazing.
It feels like the last couple of streams we've done, that's a common topic. So I don't know. It must be a good.
You're doing something to attract attention. I mean, but
Very
yes,
good.
thank you guys. It's my first podcast that I've ever been on, so pretty excited about that.
Really?
Well, I know obviously last week we had Lizzie on, one of our counterparts here. And we talked obviously about M365 Copilot, talked it from a very, Microsoft kind of employee specific lens, right? And I think, what we wanted to obviously talk about today was like, yeah, we can talk the tech, sell the tech, use it. But a huge part of, any technology strategy deployment is, utilization, change management, adoption, rollout deployment, right? And that's really where on the Microsoft side of like what Ryan and I do, of course, unified support helps with that. But even if we need, additional boots on the ground, things like that, that's really where our partner organization, comes into play. So maybe John, maybe just give a quick background brief on yourself, kind of your history. I know we've worked together for a while. You've had a role change here not long ago. So just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Absolutely. Yes, my name is John Lulay, and I am an account executive here at eGroup Enabling. I've been here coming up on a year. Prior to that, I was in the Fargo campus office for almost 5 years in the modern workplace stack, and did all things related to that. But now, like I mentioned, I'm at eGroup Enabling, and we're a full service gold certified partner. So that's a little bit about me.
I appreciate that. So, I mean, Copilot specifically, like, let's just dive into, what
Let's
you
do
guys
it.
have going on, where you help, kind of give us a little bit of an overview of that.
Well, so it's so interesting because, you look back, and Grant, I remember, I was when Copilot was first rolled out, over a year ago, and I can remember seeing it and getting it, and it was a button that was there, but like it was always like, well, what does it do? Like tell me, and then all of a sudden you've got this quota aligned to it, and then you're like, well, really, please tell me what it does, because I need to sell this. And so much of that mystery has been lifted, and obviously, like you mentioned, that push and gentle nudge from Microsoft is huge, because all it takes is using Copilot for a week, a month, and for me, like, it's invaluable. I didn't realize it when I came over here, because I had Copilot, and for meeting transcriptions and everything. And if you remember correctly, like you could only get Copilot when it was on an enterprise agreement, and you had to purchase 300 seats or more. So the buy-in was kind of a little steep. So what that did is it kind of left out some of the CSP partners. So there was a little bit of lag in there. So when I got here at eGroup Enabling, it was I realized, like, oh my God, I was using it for so much more than I realized, because they hadn't provided it, they hadn't changed that recommendation of, like, now everybody gets it. So that was my biggest eye-opening thing, is like, wow, I really was reliant on that in a very short amount of time. And that time savings, you know record a transcript on 2 to 3 to 4 meetings, and like, that's where that ROI comes into play. But yeah, as a Copilot partner, probably the biggest thing that we often see is the excitement around Copilot. Everybody is very, very excited, and rightfully so. What we try to do from our perspective as a partner is kind of slow down some of that momentum, and ask some questions before you just let it loose in the environment, because I'll share a couple things here. But for myself, it's making sure that the customer's data security is solid. Is it, do we have DLP in place? Are we looking at classification tags? Do we have, proper groups set up? Because Copilot, as you know, kind of trickles down as far as what you're able to access, based on your overall governance of your security. Uh, and so what we do is we come at it first off from, like, a very security kind of conversation. But as we move through it and we've got that buttoned up, we start to look and ask. One of my first things that we like to ask, or that we ask, and that I ask, is what would be your business objective? How can we help define what you would like to accomplish? Because what we see that drives adoption and attraction is that business use case. Because if you don't have that, maybe some of you guys have seen this, they buy 50 seats of Copilot. That's wonderful. Some people kind of use it, but there's no real, I don't want to say incentive, but there's no real traction given. There's no, okay, wow, this is fantastic. So, like, as a partner, and in conjunction with Microsoft, there's a number of different things that we have that we offer, like a vision and value type of
Mhm.
workshop, and those are engagements that customers can verify through you guys, and what that's doing is level setting the environment. More importantly, level setting expectations, because a lot of folks come in with, number one, either a lot of fear around what Copilot can do because they're afraid it might remove their job, which is not the case, or um, they don't understand the technology as a whole. So, like I said, the first thing that we do, look at security, uh, and then once we get into that Copilot journey, there's a couple of different offerings, and it can go from very baseline, like I said, that vision and value, all the way up to a deployment and adoption accelerator. And I feel like I'm talking too much, so you guys please cut me off.
Great. This is great. You know,
Ugh,
I feel like, to your point of, early in the transition period, at least even internally for us, was like, yeah, you have this new tool, but what do you do with it?
what
And I
is
think the easy kind of low hanging fruit answers were, yeah, let's record meetings, let's do transcription, let's do meeting recap, let's do, um, content creation in Word,
it?
or
Mhm.
PowerPoint,
PowerPoint.
right? Use it in Excel. And maybe I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but has there been any really unique cases or things that you've seen when you've worked with customers that are like, man, we would have never even thought to use it that way, of how folks are potentially using the solutions?
Yes, the one that jumps out at me is kind of, excuse me, a custom built kind of redaction tool that we developed for a university. what it does is it's a custom Copilot where it's able to take, and in this instance, they use a lot of, or they apply for a lot of grants. Okay, there's a number of, and what they have to do is typically research and go through and comb and try and find out specific grants and what they're about, and they can't have any PII information divulged to the person searching. So what we did in that instance is created a tool that has an auto redaction portion to it. So they can search on grants, they can receive the information, let's say it's the body of it, or some of that devil in the detail stuff, but it blocks out specific PII. That's probably one of the the biggest, strongest cases that we've utilized. I've got another one because I work with some EDUs, and we're working on another custom Copilot. I mean, out of the box, it does so much, but once you put that custom in front of it, forget it. It's almost unlimited. You get the choice, and this is what I love about it, is you get that option to say, I want it to do this. And 9 times out of 10, we can come back and go, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. Lesson plans, being able to create a lesson plan based on perhaps other templates and what other teachers are doing. That's one thing that I'm actually in talks with the school district right now, who had rolled out 1,200 seats of Copilot. But it's, again, backing it up, that's the like the end carrot. But the process, it's right in here is like, well, let's get to this business case, make sure our foundation is solid, and then we can do those things. Because the thing that you'll hear me say security sometimes more than Copilot, and I just can't emphasize it enough, because for example, if you rather than just grab Copilot, turn it on and see what happens, I would caution people against that, because some stories that we've had were an employee, and he was in his one-on-one with his manager, and he asked him, say, when do I get my raise? And the manager was like, well, that he had not discussed that with the employee. Well, that was an instance where Copilot had been utilized to, whether maliciously, unintentionally, or unintentionally, it harvested information. So, to put them on the spot like that is like, well, now had we had, data security backed up and aligned, that wouldn't have been a topic. But I've had it where I had a gentleman who said, yeah, I found out one of my employees has a club foot. And I was like, well, that's, I don't know what search you used on that. But again, the baseline is, it's got to be tight from the beginning, because if it unravels, when we ask people like, hey, which departments do you want, to look at utilizing this? Like, well, HR, legal, obviously IT, executive. I always tell them, like, let's get IT or legal and HR on the front end rather than the back end. Meaning there's been a breach, somebody's now identified somebody as something, and so that's one of them. And there's a number of different tales, and where we've had employees discover, here's what my boss's salary is. So it's just, we understand that it's, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think the interesting thing about it is, like, there's a lot of fear around this happening, right? Which, rightfully so. We just talked through a couple scenarios that probably make for pretty interesting or awkward conversations. But I think the truth people need to understand is that even if they didn't have a Gen AI tool in place, if you didn't have Copilot in place, because that data is not labeled, it's not secure to begin with, it could have still been found. Now, it's more difficult, right? It's unlikely that it is found. But I think and I know one of our security leaders had talked about, like, these tools are kind of really resurfacing, skeletons in the closet or under the bed that like, hey, we don't know they're there. We don't know this is out there.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is it still is. So
Yeah.
that's why it's just so important that, hey, even if your organization, you've made the decision that at this point, we're not going to use a Gen AI tool, or we're not going to use Copilot. Maybe you're going to use a different solution, right? And you're thinking, oh, we're fine. Hey, if it's tying into your data, it's going to be the same type of scenario that's going to potentially happen. And really, for these tools to be as effective and efficient as we'd like, they're going to need access to data, right? So whether it's you, the administrator, or it's the end user that went out and downloaded some tool, and now all of a sudden they're allowing access to different types of, data sets in your organization. It's kind of one of those things like we're to that point where it's just not there really isn't any excuse anymore for just, well, we're not going to do it. Oh, we're not worried about it. Oh, it's not going to affect us. And again, I don't like to lead with, like talking about the negative potential
fear stories. Yeah.
But like, that's just the reality of the scenario,
Oh,
right?
absolutely it is. Absolutely. And to your point, Grant, that's part of our conversation, is that even if you don't use Copilot, what do you make sure that you're locking down any and all available Gen AI type of tools into the environment, because you can get somebody that can download something, and to your point, it goes and crawls across the data, and it can find stuff that so that's one other thing that's been very pivotal, very important to setting a Copilot foundation is, number one, we also help customers when they come to, they're like, well, we don't really have an AI charter, meaning, like specifically calling out what technologies are allowed to be in the environment and which ones aren't. Because the other thing that we help with is developing that RACI and RBAC in the event of something going sideways. I mean, obviously, it's just an organizational benefit, but I mean, it all comes into play. Is that, do you have a solid AI charter? Okay, if so, what does that look like? Does it call out this? What is your RBAC? What's your RACI policies look like? And as we do this, one of the things that drives adoption and ROI as we get into the deeper engagements is we need to find someone on the team that's going to be a team captain, let's say, because if you've got 3 different departments, IT, legal, HR, and whatever, what we help do is identify who's the one person in there that's going to be able to help drive adoption of this. Let's make them kind of the coach, if you will, for that group of folks. Because again, the ROI is there, but it's only there if you provide the training and the how-to, and that's where we have, like I said, through Microsoft, or even through our own Copilot practice, because we were one of the first early adopters that Microsoft allowed to have Copilot as a professional service. So it's again, I can't emphasize enough, like, having the foundation will make or break everything. So,
well, Ryan, I know you've been quiet most of the conversation. So what?
He's got lag.
I have really bad lag right now.
There, he's frozen.
And he's frozen.
Are
you on dial-up, or?
See if I come back there. Yeah.
He's sleeping.
Well, it's been fun, Ryan. Take care. I'm gonna go play the piano here in the back, I guess.
I'm just listening now because.
Oh no.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long I'll be able to hear you, or you'll be able to hear me, but I think I think it's important topics to cover, and a lot of people don't consider it well. John, were you ever part of the issues with Delve? People freaking out about Delve?
No, I was not.
really similar stories that people turned on Delve, and all of a sudden, like all this information that they didn't know they had access to showed up. And both organizations just turned it off rather than address it.
Yep.
But this is going to be the problem, right? Is like Copilot doesn't stumble, Copilot goes and finds.
Right.
And so all these stories are so critical. I talk to customers who go, "We'll be fine. I don't think we're that worried about it." Like, because you're not paying attention.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
really need to be thoughtful about this. And people, I think, just they don't realize it. So anything we can do to just help people, and even if maybe they never get Copilot, having data governance is still better, right? Like it doesn't help you just pretend you don't have issues because they're there.
Yeah. No, exactly. You can't turn a blind eye to it just because you're not interested. That's a recipe for, like I said, do you want to get HR and legal involved on the exciting front end part of Copilot, or do you want to have them involved on the back end where it's trying to clean up the mess? So it's a pretty straightforward approach, and again, it all begins with security. So I mean, like I said, a lot of the stuff that we encounter, because we do services across the board, and as they tie into Copilot, whether it's like managed services or an XDR or threat hunter or something that sits on top of Sentinel, Copilot is going to be a very front and center piece of that, because as you guys know, the more that Copilot evolves, it's going to be, and it already is, pulling and getting its, I don't want to say tentacles, that doesn't sound like it's but it's crawling out to all of the software that's in the environment, on the Microsoft stack. Because the other thing that we've had, where folks are like, well, I'd really like to use it, but we're using Zoom, Slack, and we're on-prem. That's another big one where it might not be a fit, to your point, Grant. Even if they don't use it, we still need to vet that out and kind of make sure that it is an actual viable solution. Because what we don't want as a partner, and even as Microsoft, is to have someone procure hundreds of seats and then have these sit there, or on the front end, not understand that this is a cloud enabled application. Okay, it's got to tie into SharePoint Online, Exchange Online. It's a very, and will you get the benefit out of it with, like Zoom and Slack? And I'm not disparaging those, but no, it won't harvest that ROI as quickly as Teams, for example. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, John. So maybe just as we kind of look to wrap up here, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. I mean, what would be any, call to actions, give you a few minutes to pitch anything, that you guys are offering customers, I think obviously
to pitch. Yeah.
Connecting with you on LinkedIn.
Probably
a great first start, but yeah, what else?
Typically when we have customers that are interested, it's got to start with a conversation. Obviously, as you mentioned, connecting with me on LinkedIn is very valuable. That helps me kind of determine the interest, because the one thing that I don't enjoy, even though I'm in sales, is, pushing excessively hard when there's not interest. I can generate interest, but more so it's, I want it to be a very open, relaxed conversation, much like this. Like, listen, you're interested in Copilot? Okay, great. What do you see the benefits? I want to get to that business case first, because if you're coming to us with a desire to have it, we want to make sure that it's tangible, that there's, that what's the use case? Well, we're looking at removing some redundancy of, excessive human touch on certain things that can be, alleviated or automated. And that's probably one of the biggest things. The other thing is, if you have a Microsoft rep, or even if you don't, We have the ability to run eligibility checks, whether it's for data security or Copilot, and find out, hey, here's some things that are available, and here's the steps that we've seen people take that ensure a successful Copilot launch.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I mean, the other thing that we're seeing a lot of, and as I mentioned earlier, is more of a gravitational pull towards a lot of our managed services, because what we're seeing is that in the environments is that either there's not budget, bandwidth is stretched, and the resources just aren't there. So for example, like I said, like our threat hunter, which is 24/7,
Yeah.
that's oftentimes a lot more cost effective than bringing on additional personnel. But and same within all of the Azure services. I mean, I guess what I encourage people to do is say, hey, make a laundry list, and we can go through it and say, yep, that's something. Nope, that's not available. But more so than anything, I just want them to feel comfortable and open to speak. And then we can kind of get some type of direction, because I'm just here to provide information for them. That's truly, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do. So
very good. Well, we lost Ryan.
Can't wait
to.
Ryan just decided.
He had a power outage, so he was excited. He mentioned snow at the beginning of the call, and I'm assuming that must have taken its toll on their infrastructure grid power, and that was part of his internet issues.
Yeah, here in Sedona, I thought it was going to snow. It's only 50. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I think it's negative. It's -1 right now.
That's the high for the rest of the year.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, John, really appreciate the time, to visit. Like I said, anybody reach out to John, connect on LinkedIn. I'm sure you guys also, have opportunities for folks to tune in to webinars, trainings, so I know you post about that type of stuff, regularly. So there's always, opportunities to learn. And I think, the folks like John and the folks at eGroup would be, great people to visit with. So again, appreciate the time, John.
Love to be of service. So,
all right. See ya. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care.